At my boarding school, there weren't enough staff to do everything. So, in exchange for a scholarship to the school, some students agreed to help out around the campus. Naturally, this usually results at the end of the class, a few students cleaning desks and light switches with a rag and disinfectant, chalkboards being erased, whiteboards being cleaned, and digital boards being reset. We had teachers from all generations. It was weird. Those tasks were pretty easy. Others were a little tougher, like sweeping up the halls, mopping up the classrooms, or even worse, cleaning the cafeteria tables. It's really tough to clean a cafeteria table, especially with how messy kids can get when they're not expected to clean up afterwards. However, I would take cleaning dry juice and cold gravy off of the cafeteria ceiling 1,000 times if it would keep me from ever cleaning the furnace again. The furnace was down in the sub-basement. It was an old behemoth from the days back when making things big, heavy, and strong was far more important than making it easy to work with, replaceable, or even easy to clean. The furnace took up the entire sub-basement and was made to provide heat to the entire school, which, providing heat to an entire school in Cathedral City, was definitely not an easy task. So, it was on almost all the time, even during the depths of summer, just to keep the classrooms from freezing to at least chilly. They do, however, turn off the furnace for an hour each day, once a day, at noon, to clean it out. Don't ask me how, but the old furnace produces enough ash to fill up a large industrial trash bag every day. And of course, because of when the machine was built, no one bothered to ask how they were supposed to clean up. So, naturally, they had the students do it, since the teachers were far too big to go underneath the furnace. I hated going down there. The smell of it was very acidic and sharp. Even when the ashes were cold and the machine was off, it smelled like it was burning. The ash just felt wrong on my skin. You know that feeling when you dig through an old fire pit and it feels like the ash was almost stinging you? It's like that, but even worse, because these ashes had little metal flakes in it. It was a lot like that, only worse, because it got all over you, up and so close to your face. It got all over your skin, it got all over your hands, in your clothes, and it even feels like it settles in your lungs, even with the old paint mask they gave us. One time I wound up tasting the ashes all day when the seal wasn't set properly, and trust me, it's nothing like a campfire. One day it came back up on my chore rotation, and reluctantly, I agreed to do it. My family at the time couldn't afford the tuition. Both my parents lost their jobs, and they definitely couldn't afford to have me at home at the time. So I had to do chores at the school to keep going to school, trying not to burn through the bank account even quicker. So, at noon that day, I went to the basement where the old janitor was there. He looked even older than the school itself was, but somehow he was always listening to his phone or surfing on his phone at all times, even more than even the most tech-addicted students. He was dressed in green coveralls, and he handed me a pink painter's mask and some bright yellow coveralls to put over my school uniform. The mask helped to keep the ash out of my lungs, but looking back at it, I'm honestly surprised I didn't get lung cancer, even while wearing it. The coveralls served a similar purpose to the painter's mask, trying to keep it off your skin, but they were a bit of a poor fit. My hands and forearms weren't covered, and my neck was exposed still. Still, the janitor handed me a shovel and a bag as they opened the door to the dark sub-basement, propping the door open. A window of light into the dark pit, since, naturally, light bulbs were not allowed in the sub-basement, and flashlights were not trusted around children. There was an incident, and they're no longer allowed to near any students. The stairs down into the sub-basement were carved out of concrete, and with the exception of the furnace itself, the sub-basement was just a completely bare concrete box. Even the door leading to the basement more closely resembled a bank vault than the cheap press board used in school doors when I was young. Apparently, all the ash down there was a possible fire hazard, so they had to keep burnable items away from it at all times. The furnace itself looked like three large drums connected to each other through various pipes and leads. There was about a foot of clearance underneath it, where all the ashes accumulated underneath the pipes and drums. Even though we cleaned it every day, it somehow still managed to pile up like it was an ash day parade. I don't even know how they managed to keep it clean on holiday. Taking the shovel, I scoop up the ash close to the front to the furnace first. This part isn't too scary, even if the ash is heavy. At least I don't have to crawl underneath the furnace. Yet. When the front is all clear, I have to do the hard part of reaching underneath and start pulling out the ash. The shovel only goes so far back and there's more ash underneath, so taking as deep of a breath as I can, I get on my belly and begin to crawl underneath the furnace. The metal was cold, but every time I did this, I was scared that it would still be scorching hot, or worse, that it would turn on and the pilot lights mere inches over my hair would light up, making it so I was unable to escape. Underneath the furnace, it was a whole lot worse than looking at it from the front. The bottoms of the drums had burnt metal and even little holes to allow the ash to fall from the inside onto the concrete. I'm not sure what kind of furnace just lets ash fall to the ground instead of a grate or maybe a large pan, but that's what our furnace did. Reaching underneath with the shovel and smelling the ash, I reached up to the back wall and dragged the ash as far forward as I could, hoping to pile most of it near the entrance so I didn't have to be underneath it longer than I had to. The sound of my shovel against concrete in a closed space is one of the worst sounds of my childhood. It felt loud enough to be heard through the entire school, and I couldn't even plug my own ears. As I continued to scrape the ash forward, I heard an odd noise. Not the harsh noise of metal on concrete, but the sound of metal on metal. I stopped, worried that I somehow broke a piece of the furnace off. I definitely couldn't afford that. But instead, what I see in the ash is a small ring. Picking it up, it looked scratched and gray, maybe silver. Maybe it was covered in ash. Not being able to look at it right now, I put it in a pocket of my coveralls. Whether that was to find and return it to its owner or keep it depended on what it was, how much it was worth, and even if I could find an owner. With the ring in my coveralls pocket, I went back to my job and I heard something hiss above me, the sound of gas flowing through the pipes. I freeze, worried that the furnace is going to be turned on somehow. The furnace is supposed to stay off until I was done cleaning. I don't hear anything after the hiss, so I let out a long sigh and continue to scrape the ash, listening carefully to hear if it came back. When I was almost done getting it all out, I heard a much louder bang coming from the large barrel. Then another bang, and then another bang. It sounded like someone or something was inside the furnace and trying to get out. In my worry, I dropped my shovel and crawled out before running up to the janitor, who was still standing at the door. He was idly browsing his phone, like always. When I ran up to him out of breath, I tried to explain what happened. He barely seemed to register what I was saying until I said that someone was in the furnace. He then almost seemed to wake up and ran down to the furnace. Flipping the switch to start the furnace again, there was a loud whooshing sound as all the flames on the bottom turned up. The banging then got fainter and fainter, and a different sound could be heard from inside the main barrels. Still, though, even that sound was also, eventually, overwhelmed by the sound of expanding metal and the sound of the furnace breathing. After that, I was taken to the nurse's office with the vice principal there, too. They didn't even give me a chance to take off my coveralls. The nurse then examined me for something. She never really explained. She found the ring and took it away before I could examine it further. After an hour of being examined by the nurse, the vice principal then explained to me what was happening, as the machine wasn't properly turned off. That was why the janitor got so worried. He was worried I was going to get hurt by it. The sound of the banging in the barrels was water moving around when it wasn't supposed to, which caused the metal to contract and expand. and the screaming sound was just the sound of water suddenly being turned to steam. I didn't tell anyone I heard screaming. After that, I would never be asked to clean out the furnace again, nor would my name come up on any chore rotation again. Yet my parents never had to worry about the tuition anymore. Something tells me they didn't want me to talk about what happened, even though they never explicitly said as much. And despite what they told me, I knew for a fact that the noise coming out of the barrels wasn't water. Water doesn't bang, and water doesn't make that noise. That noise the vice principal called screaming, that was supposedly caused by the water rapidly turning into steam, that wasn't screaming. I know that for sure. Whatever was in there, it was laughing.